What if the ancient world possessed technology that rivals our own? The official story tells us civilization progressed in a straight line. Stone tools to bronze, bronze to iron, simple to complex. But evidence buried in museum archives tells a different story. Ancient batteries generating electrical current, power sources that shouldn't exist, technologies that predate their supposed invention by thousands of years. These aren't theories. These are documented discoveries. Physical objects analyzed by scientists. Artifacts that challenge everything about human history. The problem? Most of these findings never make it past academic gatekeepers. Published in obscure journals. Locked away in storage facilities. Dismissed as anomalies. When archaeologists find something that contradicts accepted timelines, their work gets buried. Funding disappears. Careers end. Today we're examining 10 ancient power sources and batteries that archaeologists actually discovered. Each one documented, each one analyzed, each one inconvenient for mainstream narratives. These artifacts prove one thing clearly. Ancient civilizations understood principles of electricity and power generation. That knowledge was either lost or hidden, possibly both. The evidence exists in labs and storage facilities right now. Real objects, real measurements, real chemical analysis. Fair warning, what you're about to hear contradicts standard history textbooks. But the physical evidence doesn't lie. Batteries don't generate current by accident. Power sources don't create themselves. Somebody built these devices. Somebody understood the principles. Somebody possessed knowledge that supposedly didn't exist. 10 cases. 10 impossible artifacts. 10 reasons to question everything you've been taught about ancient technology. The pattern becomes clear once you see it. Advanced knowledge existed, then it vanished, or was suppressed. Let's examine the evidence. Number 1. The Baghdad Battery. 1936. German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, working in modern-day Iraq. He's excavating a site near Baghdad. Standard archaeological work, cataloging pottery fragments, recording depths. Then he finds something strange. A clay jar, about 5 inches tall. Nothing unusual there. Ancient civilizations made thousands of jars. But this jar contains something that shouldn't exist. Inside sits a copper cylinder. The cylinder is capped at the bottom. An iron rod runs through the center. The rod shows clear signs of acid corrosion. Koenig examines it closely. He's dealt with ancient artifacts for decades, but this configuration looks familiar. It resembles a galvanic cell, a battery. He documents everything carefully, takes photographs, measures dimensions, notes the corrosion patterns. The jar dates to around 200 BC, the Parthian Empire period. That's over 2,000 years ago. Here's the problem. Alessandro Volta invented the battery in 1800 AD. That's the official history. First, electrical battery, revolutionary invention. But Koenig is holding something that predates Volta by 2,000 years. He publishes his findings in 1938, proposes the jar functioned as an electrical device. The archaeological community dismisses him immediately. Impossible, they say. Ancient peoples didn't understand electricity. The jar must be for storage. Maybe wine, maybe scrolls. Except the copper cylinder is sealed at the bottom. No way to store liquids. The iron rod serves no storage purpose. And that acid corrosion? That's the signature of electrochemical reaction. 1948. Engineer Willard Gray at General Electric decides to test the theory. He builds an exact replica, fills it with grape juice as the electrolyte. The battery generates 1.1 volts. Sustained current. Undeniable proof. The design works. The ancient jar can produce electricity. Gray publishes his results in technical journals. Other engineers replicate the experiment. Same results every time. The Baghdad battery works. It generates measurable electrical current using 2,000-year-old technology. So why did the Parthians need batteries? The official explanation avoids this question, but evidence suggests electroplating. Some Parthian artifacts show gold plating on base metals. Electroplating requires electrical current. The batteries provide that current. Ancient craftsmen understood practical applications of electricity. They built working devices. They used them for specific purposes. That knowledge existed 2 millennia before Volta supposedly invented the battery. But mainstream archaeology still calls it controversial, still disputes the obvious function, because accepting it means rewriting history. Number 2 takes us even further back. Number 2. The Dendera Light. Temple of Hathor. Dendera, Egypt. Built around 1st century BC. Walls covered with hieroglyphics and relief carvings. Most depict typical Egyptian imagery: gods, pharaohs, religious ceremonies. But one chamber contains something different. 3 stone reliefs show peculiar objects: large bulb-shaped devices, supported on pillars, wavy lines inside the bulbs, a lotus flower at the base, cables extending from the flower to a box. The box resembles modern depictions of power supplies. The bulbs look exactly like early electric light designs. The wavy lines suggest filaments or plasma discharges. Egyptian scholars provide the official explanation. These are mythological symbols. The bulb represents the first sunrise. The wavy line is a snake, the god of creation. Standard interpretation: nothing to see here. Except engineers and electricians who visit the temple see something else entirely. The design mirrors basic electrical light bulb schematics. Insulator at the base, conductor running through, power source connected via cables. Even the proportions match functional requirements. Norwegian electrical engineer Olaf Alexanderson studied the reliefs extensively, published technical analysis in 1995. He identified every component. The lotus flower functions as an insulator socket. The cable is a conductor. The box represents a power source. The bulb shape contains the discharge. Everything corresponds to known principles of electrical lighting. The snake inside? That's how ancient Egyptians might depict electricity. A moving force they could see, but not fully understand. Serpentine, dangerous, powerful, hieroglyphics near the relief reference, lightning from stones, and divine light without fire. Light without fire. That's electricity. The ancient Egyptians carved this image for a reason. They documented technology they possessed or witnessed. Standard archaeology rejects this interpretation completely. Impossible, they say. Egyptians didn't have electricity. No copper wire has been found. No generators. But absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Copper wire wouldn't survive 3,000 years underground. Organic insulators would decompose. Only stone carvings remain. And those carvings show exactly what they show: light bulbs, power sources, electrical systems. The Dendera light remains classified as mythology. Museum placards describe religious symbolism. Tour guides explain creation myths. But engineers who analyze the design keep reaching the same conclusion: functional electrical lighting system, documented in stone. Either ancient Egyptians had remarkable imagination that coincidentally matched electrical engineering principles, or they possessed actual electrical technology. The evidence speaks for itself. Number 3. The Piri Reis Map, 1513. Turkish Admiral Piri Reis creates a world map drawn on gazelle skin, incredibly detailed. The map shows the Atlantic Ocean, European coastline, African coast, the Americas, all accurately depicted. Nothing unusual so far. Europeans knew these regions by 1513, but the map includes something that shouldn't be there: the coastline of Antarctica, mapped in precise detail, mountains, bays, the exact geography. Here's the problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. That's 300 years after Piri Reis drew his map. More problematic. The map shows Antarctica without ice, the actual coastline beneath the ice sheets. Modern ice-penetrating radar mapped that coastline in 1949, using advanced technology. That's when we first saw what lay beneath the ice. But Piri Reis drew it in 1513. Exact proportions, accurate positions. Impossible, according to accepted history. The map surfaced in 1929. found in Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. Turkish officials donated copies to museums worldwide. Scholars examined the source materials. Piri Reis wrote notes on the map explaining his methods. He compiled information from multiple ancient maps, some dating to the time of Alexander the Great, 4th century BC. He specifically mentions source maps from the Library of Alexandria. Before it burned, ancient cartographers possessed knowledge that later civilizations lost. They mapped Antarctica before ice covered it. That ice accumulated gradually over thousands of years, which means somebody mapped Antarctica at least 6,000 years ago, when the continent was partially ice-free. Professor Charles Hapgood from Keene State College studied the map extensively, published findings in 1966. His analysis confirmed the accuracy. The longitude positions required advanced mathematical knowledge. The trigonometric projections matched modern cartographic techniques. The Library of Congress and U.S. Air Force Strategic Command analyzed the map separately. Both confirmed its remarkable accuracy for Antarctic coastlines. Official academia acknowledges the accuracy, but refuses to address the obvious implications. How did ancient civilizations map Antarctica? Who possessed this knowledge? What happened to that civilization? The evidence exists on gazelle skin in Istanbul. Photographed, analyzed, verified. But textbooks don't mention it, because accepting it means accepting advanced ancient civilizations, global maritime capability, knowledge that exceeds our own historical timeline. The Piri Reis map proves ancient peoples possessed geographical knowledge that supposedly didn't exist. That knowledge came from somewhere. Somebody created those source maps. Somebody sailed those waters. Somebody mapped that coastline. Then that knowledge vanished, filed away, forgotten, until a Turkish admiral compiled fragments into a map that modern science can't explain. Number 4. The Abydos helicopter. Temple of Seti I, Abydos, Egypt. Built around 1300 BC. Walls covered with hieroglyphics, documenting the pharaoh's achievements. Standard Egyptian temple. Extensively studied. Nothing unusual. Until researchers examined one particular section more carefully. A series of hieroglyphics appears to show modern vehicles. A helicopter, a submarine, a glider, maybe even a tank. The images are unmistakable. Rotor blades clearly visible, tail boom, cockpit area, landing skids. The submarine shape shows a hull, conning tower, propeller configuration. These aren't vague shapes requiring imagination. The designs are specific and detailed. Official explanation: palimpsest. Old hieroglyphics partially erased and carved over with new ones. The overlapping creates coincidental shapes that resemble modern vehicles. Pure coincidence. Nothing more. Except detailed analysis reveals problems with that explanation. First, the hieroglyphics show consistent depth. No evidence of layered carving. No partial erasure visible under microscopic examination. Second, the erosion patterns are uniform. If different carvings overlapped, erosion would affect layers differently. It doesn't. Third, the coincidence requires multiple modern vehicles appearing together. Helicopter next to submarine, next to glider. What are the odds random overlapping creates that specific combination? Egyptologist Ruth Hover studied the site extensively. She found no evidence of palimpsest at this location. The hieroglyphics appear to be original single-layer carvings. Other sections of the temple clearly show palimpsest. Different depths, visible overlap. Those areas look nothing like the helicopter section. The official explanation relies on coincidence, but mathematics argues against it. Random overlapping hieroglyphics creating recognizable modern vehicles? The probability approaches zero. Alternative theory? The carvings represent real objects, either ancient aircraft or prophetic visions. Ancient Egyptian texts reference flying boats of the gods, vehicles that traveled through the sky, metal birds carrying passengers. Those descriptions appear throughout Egyptian mythology, usually dismissed as fantasy, religious symbolism. But what if they documented real technology? What if ancient Egyptians witnessed or possessed aircraft? The Abydos carvings would make perfect sense. Documentation of technology that existed, carved in stone for posterity, technology that either disappeared or was taken away, knowledge that vanished from human civilization. The carvings remain visible today. Thousands of tourists photograph them annually. Amateur researchers debate their origin online, but academic Egyptology maintains the party line. Palimpsest. Coincidence. Misinterpretation. Because accepting the alternative means accepting impossibilities. Advanced ancient technology. Lost knowledge. Civilizations we don't acknowledge. The helicopter hieroglyphics challenge fundamental assumptions. And challenging assumptions threatens entire academic careers. So the carvings are explained away, filed under solved mysteries, case closed. But the evidence remains carved in stone, 3,000 years old, clear as day. Number 5. The Antikythera mechanism, 1900. Greek divers working off the coast of Antikythera Island, searching for sponges. 50 meters deep, they discover a shipwreck. Roman cargo vessel, sunk around 70 BC. The wreck contains typical cargo: amphorae, sculptures, coins, standard archaeological treasure. Among the artifacts, divers recover a corroded bronze lump, unremarkable at first glance, just another piece of debris. The lump sits in storage for years. Nobody pays attention. Then it splits open, revealing internal mechanisms: gears, wheels, graduated scales, a device. An extremely complex device. Archaeologists begin careful examination. What they find defies explanation. The mechanism contains at least 30 bronze gears, precisely cut teeth, differential gear systems, epicyclic gearing, pin and slot mechanisms. This is advanced mechanical engineering, comparable to 18th century clockwork, except it's from the 1st century BC, 2,000 years old. Engineer Derek de Sola Price studied the mechanism for decades, published comprehensive analysis in 1974. He determined its function. An astronomical calculator predicts positions of sun, moon, and planets, calculates eclipses, tracks the metonic cycle, shows the Olympic Games calendar. The precision is remarkable. Gear teeth cut to tolerances of a fraction of a millimeter. Mathematical calculations embedded in the gear ratios. This device required deep understanding of astronomy, advanced mathematics, sophisticated manufacturing techniques, all supposedly non-existent in the ancient world. Modern reconstruction proved the mechanism works perfectly. Every calculation accurate, every prediction correct. But here's what makes this disturbing. No comparable device appears again until 1,400 years later. Islamic scholars and European clockmakers eventually developed similar mechanisms. That means ancient Greeks possessed mechanical technology that disappeared for over a millennium. What happened? How did this knowledge vanish so completely? The mechanism wasn't unique. Inscriptions reference other similar devices. Ancient texts describe mechanical planetariums, automated astronomical displays. Cicero mentions an invention by Archimedes, a sphere showing movements of sun, moon, and planets. Exactly like the Antikythera mechanism. Those devices existed, then they disappeared. Knowledge lost, technology forgotten. When the mechanism was discovered, scholars initially refused to believe it. Impossible, they said. Ancient peoples couldn't build this. Some suggested it was planted, a hoax. Modern clockwork artificially aged, but metallurgical analysis proved authenticity. Bronze composition matches 1st century BC standards. Corrosion patterns consistent with 2,000 years underwater. The mechanism is genuine, and it represents technological capabilities that officially didn't exist. Museums now display reconstructions. The original sits in Athens National Archaeological Museum, studied continuously, but questions remain unanswered. How common were these devices? Who built them? What other technologies did they possess? The Antikythera mechanism proves one thing conclusively. Ancient civilizations achieved far more than we acknowledge. Advanced mathematics, precision engineering, complex astronomy, all operational 2,000 years ago, then lost. Erased from technological development, only rediscovered by accident underwater. Number 6. The Lycurgus Cup, Roman Empire, 4th century AD. Master craftsmen create a ceremonial drinking cup made of dichroic glass. The cup depicts King Lycurgus of Thrace, entangled with vines. Mythological scene. Artistic masterpiece. Beautiful craftsmanship. Nothing unusual for Roman glasswork, until you change the lighting. Under reflected light, the cup appears jade green, opaque, standard colored glass. Shine light through it, and something impossible happens. The cup transforms, becomes ruby red, translucent, glowing. Two completely different colors depending on light source. That's dichroic glass. Color changes based on light direction. Modern science developed this technology in the 1950s, using advanced understanding of nanoparticles. Colloidal gold and silver suspended in glass. Particles between 50 and 100 nanometers. Nanoparticle technology, supposedly invented in the 20th century, but Roman craftsmen created it in the 4th century AD. The cup survived intact, now displayed in the British Museum. Researchers analyzed the glass composition using electron microscopy. Results shocked materials scientists. The glass contains gold and silver nanoparticles, precisely sized, perfectly distributed, exactly the configuration needed for dichroic properties. Professor Ian Freestone from University College London led the analysis, published findings in 2007. His team confirmed the nanoparticle structure. Gold particles averaging 70 nanometers. Silver particles slightly smaller. Ratio carefully controlled. This requires understanding of quantum mechanics, how light interacts with particles smaller than wavelength, surface plasmon resonance, quantum effects. Romans supposedly knew nothing about quantum physics, didn't have electron microscopes, couldn't see nanoparticles, yet they manufactured them deliberately, created exact specifications, achieved effects not replicated until 1,500 years later. How? The question haunts materials scientists. Traditional explanation? Lucky accident. Romans stumbled onto the correct formula. Pure chance. Except the Lycurgus cup isn't unique. Other Roman glass objects show similar nanoparticle structures. Always gold and silver. Always precise ratios. That's not accident. That's controlled manufacturing. Deliberate technique. Knowledge-based production. Romans possessed advanced understanding of materials science. They knew adding specific metallic compounds created color-changing effects. They refined the process, perfected the technique. Then that knowledge disappeared. Islamic glassmakers forgot it. European craftsmen lost it. Renaissance artists couldn't replicate it. Not until modern nanotechnology rediscovered the principles did we understand how Romans achieved these effects. The Lycurgus cup proves ancient metallurgists worked at nanoscale, controlled particle size, understood light-matter interactions at quantum level. That knowledge existed. Real, practical, applied. Archaeological orthodoxy struggles with this. Can't fit it into accepted timelines. Can't explain the knowledge source. So they call it fortunate accident. Unexplained mystery. Outlier. But the cup exists. Physical object. Scientifically analyzed. Properties confirmed. Roman craftsmen possessed technological knowledge that shouldn't exist. Knowledge we only recently regained. What else did they know? What other techniques have we lost? How much ancient technology remains buried or dismissed? The Lycurgus cup demonstrates clearly. Ancient peoples achieved far more than history acknowledges. Number 7. The Saqqara bird. 1898. French archaeologist discovers a small wooden object in an Egyptian tomb near Saqqara. Dates to around 200 BC, Ptolemaic period. The object resembles a bird. 5-inch wingspan. Carved from sycamore wood. Painted details. Catalogued as ceremonial bird figure. Filed with thousands of other Egyptian bird artifacts. Stored away. Nothing remarkable. Egypt produced countless bird representations. Religious significance. Symbol of the soul. The Saqqara bird sat in museum storage for decades, labeled as toy or religious icon, 1969. Egyptologist Khalil Messiha examines the artifact more carefully. He notices something previous researchers missed. The tail is vertical, not horizontal like bird tails, vertical like an aircraft tail fin. The wings show aerodynamic properties, slightly curved, shaped for lift generation. The body is streamlined, weight balanced toward the front, center of gravity positioned for stable flight. Messiha was a model aircraft enthusiast. He recognized aeronautical design immediately. This isn't a bird. It's an aircraft model. A glider. He proposed the theory publicly, built a scale model, added a tailplane to the vertical stabilizer. The model flew. Stable gliding. Controlled descent, just like a modern glider. The Egyptian government assigned a committee to investigate. Engineers and aeronautical experts examined the artifact. Their conclusion? The Saqqara bird displays principles of aerodynamic design. Wing shape generates lift. Tail configuration provides stability. Weight distribution enables proper flight dynamics. This is aviation engineering. From 2,000 years before the Wright brothers, mainstream archaeology rejected the findings immediately. It's just a bird, they insist. Religious symbolism. Children's toy. But birds don't have vertical tails. Birds don't use aerodynamic wing profiles. Birds don't balance weight forward for gliding stability. The Saqqara bird incorporates specific aviation engineering principles, not by accident, by deliberate design. Ancient Egyptian texts reference flying boats, vehicles that traveled through air, methods of construction and flight. Those references, usually dismissed as mythology, flights of fancy, religious allegory. But what if they documented real technology? What if ancient Egyptians understood principles of flight? The Saqqara bird makes perfect sense then. A model, a representation, documentation of flying vehicles they built or witnessed. Other cultures show similar artifacts. South American gold objects resembling aircraft, Asian temple carvings depicting flying machines. Consistent worldwide documentation of aerial technology. The evidence accumulates, but academic consensus refuses to budge, because accepting ancient flight technology means rewriting everything, acknowledging lost civilizations, admitting technological regression that threatens established narratives, careers built on accepted timelines, university departments teaching orthodox history. So, the Saqqara bird remains classified as decorative object, tourist trinket, religious icon. The Cairo Museum displays it in the bird collection. No mention of aerodynamics, no discussion of flight properties. But engineers who examine it reach unanimous conclusions. Aircraft design, functional model, engineering knowledge. Ancient Egyptians understood flight. They documented it in wood, left evidence for future generations. That evidence sits in museums worldwide, analyzed, measured, confirmed, just not acknowledged. Number 8. The Stone Spheres of Costa Rica. 1930s. United Fruit Company clearing jungle in Costa Rica's Diquís Delta, preparing land for banana plantations. Workers discover massive stone spheres, dozens of them, perfectly round, various sizes, some small as basketballs, others exceeding 2 meters in diameter, weighing 16 tons. The spheres are granite, carved with incredible precision, near perfect roundness. Archaeologists arrive to study the site. Led by Doris Stone, extensive documentation begins. The spheres date to approximately 600 AD, created by the indigenous Diquís culture, pre-Columbian civilization, but the craftsmanship defies explanation. Modern analysis measures the spheres using laser scanning, precision within millimeters of perfect spheres, some within 2 millimeters across 2-meter diameter. That's 0.1% accuracy. Remarkable precision for any era. Extraordinary for pre-industrial civilization. Creating a perfect sphere from granite requires advanced mathematical knowledge. understanding of three-dimensional geometry, precise measurement tools, sophisticated carving techniques. Granite is extremely hard stone. Carving it requires harder tools. The Dakis culture supposedly had only stone and bronze implements, yet they created objects more precisely round than modern sculptors achieve without computer guidance. How? The question haunts researchers. No tool marks remain on the spheres. Surface completely smooth. No evidence of abrasion. No chisel marks. No indication of carving method. The granite came from quarries miles away, transported through dense jungle, across rivers. No wheels. No domesticated animals for hauling. Moving 16-ton stones requires engineering, leverage systems, roller mechanisms, coordinated labor, then perfect shaping, mathematical precision, quality control, ensuring spherical accuracy. This is advanced manufacturing, not primitive tool use. The spheres were arranged in specific patterns, alignments corresponding to astronomical positions. Some researchers suggest navigational purposes. Perfect spheres arranged geometrically across the landscape. Purpose unknown. Method mysterious. United Fruit Company destroyed many spheres during land clearing. Dynamited them. Crushed others. Archaeological tragedy. Remaining spheres now protected by Costa Rican government. UNESCO World Heritage Sites. But mainstream archaeology provides no explanation for their creation, just acknowledgement they exist. The official narrative says indigenous people carved them over generations, using primitive tools, through trial and error. That explanation doesn't account for the precision. Random carving doesn't produce 0.1% accuracy. Trial and error doesn't create dozens of perfect spheres. This was sophisticated manufacturing, deliberate engineering, technical knowledge that supposedly didn't exist in pre-Columbian Americas. The Dakis culture left no written records, no explanation of their methods, no documentation of purpose, just the spheres themselves. Physical proof of technological capability, evidence that challenges accepted understanding of ancient American civilizations, proof of advanced mathematical and engineering knowledge. That evidence sits in Costa Rican jungles, measured by laser, analyzed by geologists, confirmed by materials scientists. Perfect spheres, carved by people who officially couldn't have carved them. The contradiction remains unresolved. The spheres exist. The precision is real. The engineering knowledge is evident. But the explanation? Still missing from textbooks. Number 9. The Coso Artifact. 1961. 3 rock collectors exploring the Coso Mountains in California. Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mikesell, searching for geodes near Olancha. They find what appears to be a geode, typical for the region, roughly oval, encrusted with fossils. Back at their shop, Mikesell cuts it open with a diamond saw. The blade hits something unexpected. Hard. Metal. Inside the rock is a manufactured object. A hexagonal core. Metallic shaft through the center. White ceramic collar. Corroded copper surrounding it. The object resembles a spark plug. Specifically looks like a Champion spark plug from the 1920s. Here's the problem. The rock is a geode, formed over thousands of years, layer upon layer of mineral deposits. The fossil shells encrusting the exterior are estimated at 500,000 years old. Based on standard geological assessment, a spark plug inside a 500,000-year-old rock formation, impossible according to every timeline we have. The trio documented everything. Photographs, X-rays, detailed descriptions. X-rays revealed internal structure, metal core, spring or helix visible inside, terminal at the top. Exactly like a spark plug, down to manufacturing details. Creationists seized on the discovery immediately. Proof that modern humans existed far earlier than accepted science claims. Mainstream science dismissed it completely. Obvious hoax, they said. Modern object artificially encrusted. Deliberate deception. But the collectors weren't scientists. They were rock hobbyists. No motive for elaborate hoax. No fame sought. No profit pursued. They simply documented what they found, let others examine it, remained confused by the object themselves. The artifact was examined by multiple researchers. Ron Calais, from Creation Research Society, studied it extensively, confirmed the X-ray analysis, verified the internal structure. Geological analysis of the encrustation showed genuine mineral formation, not artificial, not recently applied. The rock formed around the object over long time periods. Standard geological processes. That creates an impossible situation. Modern spark plug, ancient rock formation. Either the rock isn't as old as it appears, or the object isn't modern. Skeptics argue the rock formation could occur rapidly under specific conditions. Fast mineral incrustation. Decades rather than millennia. Possible, but unlikely given the fossil inclusions. Those shells are definitively ancient, extinct species, known dating parameters. Alternative theory? The object isn't a spark plug. Coincidentally resembles one, but X-rays show helical structure. Central electrode. Ceramic insulator. Terminal connection point. If not a spark plug, what manufactured object from antiquity shares these exact features? No known ancient artifact matches this configuration. No ancient culture created devices with helical internals and ceramic insulators. The Koso artifact vanished after initial examination. Current whereabouts unknown. No major museum will display it. No university will study it officially. Too controversial. Too disruptive to establish timelines. The photographs and X-rays survive. Documentation exists. Multiple witnesses confirm the discovery circumstances. But without the physical object, verification becomes impossible. Analysis ends. Convenient for orthodox science. Inconvenient artifact disappears. Problem solved. Pattern repeats frequently. Objects that don't fit are lost. Evidence that contradicts accepted theory vanishes. The Koso artifact represents impossible archaeology. Modern technology in ancient geological context. Either our geological dating is wrong, or our technological timeline is wrong, or someone traveled back in time. None of those options fit comfortably into mainstream science. So the artifact is forgotten, filed under unexplained mysteries. Case closed, without resolution, but the documentation remains. The witnesses still testify. The X-rays still show internal structure. Evidence of something that shouldn't exist, but did. Number 10. The ancient nuclear reactor at Oklo. 1972. French nuclear fuel processing plant. Scientists analyzing uranium ore from Oklo, Gabon. Standard procedure. Measure isotope ratios. Ensure fuel quality. The readings come back wrong. Uranium-235% too low. Below natural abundance. Natural uranium contains 0.72%, U-235. The Oklo sample shows 0.717%. Small difference, but impossible through natural processes. Something consumed that uranium. Fission reaction. French scientist Francis Perrin investigates. Leads a team to Oklo. They examine the geological site carefully. What they discover shocks the scientific community. Evidence of sustained nuclear fission. 2 billion years ago. Natural nuclear reactor. Operating in prehistoric times. Multiple reactor zones identified. 16 distinct locations where fission occurred. Sustained reactions lasting hundreds of thousands of years. The conditions required for natural nuclear reactors are extremely specific. Need high uranium concentration. Need water as moderator. Need specific geological configuration. All those conditions existed at Oklo 2 billion years ago. Natural formation. No artificial construction. Or so the official story claims. But researchers noticed something unusual. The reactor zones show engineering characteristics. Optimal configurations. Efficient designs. Water channels positioned perfectly for moderation. Uranium ore concentrated at exact critical mass. Waste products isolated in specific geological layers. Natural formation producing engineering efficiency? Possible, but suspicious. Dr. Glenn Seaborg, former head of United States Atomic Energy Commission, studied the findings. Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. His analysis raised questions. The reactor design showed features suggesting knowledge and planning. Natural reactors require uranium concentration around 3% U-235. Modern reactors use similar concentrations. Oklo reactors operated at that exact percentage. The water moderation cycled on and off. Sustained reaction without meltdown. Perfect control. Natural feedback loops maintaining stability. Could nature create nuclear reactors? Yes. Under specific conditions. Given enough time, could nature create such efficient designs? Repeatedly? At multiple locations? That's where probability becomes uncomfortable. The Oklo reactors operated intermittently for hundreds of thousands of years. Generated power estimated at 100 kilowatts. Natural cycling provided perfect control. Heat generated steam. Steam removed water moderator. Reaction slowed. Cooling allowed water return. Reaction resumed. Self-regulating nuclear reactor. Operating for millennia. 2 billion years ago. The waste products remain stable. Trapped in geological formations. No environmental contamination. Perfect containment. Modern nuclear waste disposal engineers study the site. Learn from natural containment. The geological formations held radioactive materials secure for 2 billion years. Better than any human-designed storage facility. But questions persist. Did intelligence guide these formations? Did an advanced civilization engineer these reactors? Official science says no. Pure chance. Geological coincidence. Natural processes producing perfect results. Alternative researchers ask different questions. What if ancient civilizations existed 2 billion years ago? What if they understood nuclear physics? The evidence at Oklo is undeniable. Nuclear fission occurred. Sustained reactions operated. Waste products were contained. Whether natural or engineered remains debated. But the sophistication is remarkable either way. Ancient nuclear reactors exist. Physical proof, scientifically verified. Running on nuclear fission billions of years before humans supposedly discovered the process. Nature achieved what took humans until 1942 to accomplish. The first controlled nuclear reaction at University of Chicago. But nature did it 2 billion years earlier. Or somebody did. The evidence sits in Gabon. Studied continuously. Mining operations carefully preserve the reactor zones. Scientific papers document every detail. Isotope ratios. Fission products. Geological context. Ancient nuclear power. Confirmed. Real. Operating before complex life existed on Earth. That fact alone should revolutionize our understanding of planetary history, of geological processes, of what's possible in deep time. Instead, it's filed as geological curiosity, natural phenomenon, interesting anomaly, because acknowledging alternative explanations means confronting uncomfortable possibilities. Advanced ancient civilizations, lost nuclear technology, knowledge predating humanity. The Oklo reactors prove one thing conclusively. Nuclear fission occurred naturally on Earth. Sustained reactions operated successfully. Perfect engineering emerged from geological processes. Or was engineered deliberately. Either conclusion challenges accepted understanding. 10 cases. 10 ancient power sources and batteries that archaeologists discovered and documented. The Baghdad battery generating electrical current. The Dendera light showing electrical lighting systems. Ancient maps documenting impossible geographical knowledge. Each case backed by physical evidence. Real artifacts. Scientific analysis. Expert testimony. The pattern is undeniable. Ancient civilizations possessed technological knowledge that officially didn't exist. Electrical batteries, 2,000 years before Volta. Nanotechnology, 1,500 years before modern science. Nuclear reactions, 2 billion years before Fermi. These aren't theories. These are documented discoveries. Physical objects sitting in museums and research facilities right now. But mainstream archaeology treats them as anomalies, coincidences, misinterpretations, because accepting them means rewriting human history, acknowledging advanced ancient knowledge. admitting technological regression that threatens academic careers built on accepted timelines, questions university curricula, challenges textbook narratives, so evidence gets minimized, discoveries get explained away, uncomfortable artifacts disappear into storage. The suppression isn't always deliberate conspiracy. Often, it's institutional inertia, resistance to paradigm shifts, unwillingness to question fundamental assumptions. But the result is the same. Evidence that contradicts accepted history gets buried. Meanwhile, the artifacts remain. The Baghdad battery still generates current when tested. The Lycurgus cup still changes color. The Antikythera mechanism still calculates astronomical positions perfectly. Physical proof that ancient peoples achieved far more than we acknowledge. What does this mean? Either human history follows a different trajectory than taught, or other civilizations preceded us, or knowledge was lost and rediscovered multiple times. Any explanation requires reconsidering what we think we know about the past. The evidence has been presented. 10 cases, 10 instances of ancient technology, 10 reasons to question orthodox history. What you believe is your choice, but the physical artifacts exist. The scientific analysis is documented. The pattern is clear. Ancient civilizations possessed advanced knowledge. That knowledge was either lost through catastrophe or suppressed deliberately, or both. The evidence exists in museums worldwide, available for examination, open for analysis. They count on people accepting standard narratives, not asking uncomfortable questions, not examining evidence personally. Stay curious. Question accepted stories. Examine evidence directly. The truth always emerges eventually. Suppression only works temporarily. Ancient batteries prove electrical knowledge existed millennia ago. Ancient maps prove geographical knowledge exceeded our timelines. Ancient mechanisms prove mathematical sophistication we barely acknowledge. The pattern cannot be hidden once you see it. Advanced ancient civilizations, lost technology, suppressed evidence. 10 cases reveal what archaeology prefers to ignore. Knowledge existed, then vanished, but evidence remains. That evidence speaks clearly. Ancient peoples were far more capable than history admits. The question isn't whether these technologies existed. The artifacts prove they did. The question is, what else has been hidden? What other discoveries sit in storage? What other evidence contradicts accepted history? Stay skeptical. Stay informed. Stay free.